Hello everybody, welcome back to another Borderlands 2 tier list video. And today we are going to be looking at the snipers in this game on vanilla. And let's just go ahead and jump right in. First of all, we have the Amigo Sincero, which I believe is added in the Fight for Sanctuary DLC, so it's actually a relatively newer weapon. And this weapon is just like the Trespasser. It ignores shields and deals health damage to enemies. Excuse me. So that part's really nice because what that allows it to do is basically allows you to cheese certain raid boss fights like Vermivorous and or sorry, not Vermivorous, Veracitus, the Stalker, and Pyropete as well. You typically use the Trespasser for those two boss fights. So the Amigo Sincero can do the same thing, but it's also just a much better sniper. It does a lot more damage than the Trespasser. I think the fire rate is also slightly better, but even if it isn't, I can't remember. It doesn't matter because the DPS is way, way higher and way more respectable. The Trespasser is really only an option for cheesing enemies, whereas the Amigo Sincero is a legitimate option on just about any character, and especially Zero. So, with that in mind, I think for now, I think we'll put it in I think we'll put it in A tier. I think this is a pretty solid sniper. It may get moved down to B. We'll see how the list shakes out, but for now, I think it's fine. It's a very, very respectable choice. Next up, we have the Buffalo. Um, Many people probably know of the Buffalo and the Elephant Gun. They're extremely low fire rate, high damage Jacob snipers with no scope on them. And the problem with these is that the damage does not compensate for just how bad the low fire rate is and the reload speed. Um, and having no scope on a sniper is fun in concept, but in practicality, it's garbage. It's not it's not very good. You're probably gonna miss a lot, especially from long range and mid range too. It's more like a close range gun, but its fire rate is so bad that you also can't use it in close range. Um, yeah, I don't like this weapon. I don't even think it's very good on Zero. I think it's just kind of bad. It's just outclassed by just about everything on this list, so for that reason, it's going in F tier. Next up, we have the Cher-ami. I have no idea how that's pronounced. It's French, but something like that. So this is a Moxie sniper. That's a huge bonus because it's the only one. So that has a nice spot on Zero already. So the damage is not the best, but if you're hitting crits, it's respectable. Uh, Basically, it's a nice little utility weapon for Sniper Zero in particular because you can keep his critical ascension stacks while healing with the Cher-ami. So I think it has a special nice utility use on Zero, but on other characters, there's not much of a reason to use this. The damage is okay, but you can use other Moxie weapons that deal more damage or just have a better, like utility to them, like the slow hand, for example. The Grog nozzle, of course, is another, but the Hail, the Kitten, these are all better Moxie weapons than the Cher-ami. So I think I'll give it a little bit of credit for its nice. It has a nice niche on Zero, especially for raiding. But other than that, it's kind of meh. So I think we'll put it C tier. It's all right, but we'll give it a little bit of an edge because of Zero's use with it. So top of C tier. Okay, next up we have the Cobra. Everyone knows it has the most difficult gun to get. It's extremely rare, but you would think that being extremely rare it would be rewarding to get it, but not really. It's not a very powerful weapon. The fire rate's okay. It's pretty slow. Reload speed is kind of slow too, and the damage it's all right. It does do explosive damage, so it has some like niche uses with like Krieg and Axton, but even on them, like there's way better options. It also does get Gun Splash, so it does benefit from Reaper and Be Like Water, those two skills, but even with all of that, it's still not a very powerful weapon. Um, it can be pretty fun to use, and again, it can work, but it's really not amazing. And I think it's going to be in the C tier as well for that reason. I'll put it, I think, above the Cher-ami, because the Cher-ami you really would only use that on Zero. Whereas the Cobra, you can use it on Accent and Krieg at least and get respectable results. Maybe even Gauge with High Anarchy. I don't know how good that would be, but yeah, could potentially work. Okay, Elephant Gun. As I was saying earlier with the Buffalo, they're just extremely high damage but low fire rate, bad reload speed snipers with no scope. It's in the F tier. I guess the Elephant Gun is technically better since it does more damage than the Buffalo, but I hate both of these weapons. I think they're horrific. They can be kind of cool to use, and before like OP10, like you can fool around with them for fun, but in terms of performance, they are bottom of the barrel. Okay, next up we have Firmington's Edge, which is actually kind of a forgotten about sniper in this game, but it's actually pretty good. So it has increased crit when zoomed, um, has a better zoom in general. This thing zooms in like really, really far, like further than maybe any sniper. It has very high zoom, has good mag, has good damage, has good accuracy. All of those things are increased on this weapon. This is a good weapon. The only caveat is that it's a bit annoying to use with how far it's zoomed in. Like you can't really use it in close range, and you do that more often in Borderlands than you would think with snipers, just because of the nature of and pacing of the game. It's still usable though. It's more of a medium to close range, or sorry, medium to long range weapon where you pick off a few enemies and then maybe head into the fray without using this weapon. Um, it's actually pretty solid though. I think I'd probably use the Amigo Sincero over it. I'm not sure that it's A tier. It is good, but um, I think B tier is fair. I may move that up depending on like how the rest of this list shakes out, because this is a pretty respectable weapon, but it's just not gonna like blow you away either. So I think B tier makes sense. It's above average. Okay, next we have the Godfinger. Very low fire rate and increases damage the longer the projectiles travel. So this has multiple unlisted projectiles that get amped as it travels further, and those do benefit from the unlisted projectiles. Even still, this weapon is not practical to use at all. Um, it's very underwhelming, especially because this isn't like Sniper Elite V2, like you're 1,000 miles away from your target. Like in Borderlands, you're always up close, even when you're using snipers, like almost always up close. So the Godfinger just falls flat on its face because it's never in range to actually make use of it. You need to be so far to actually have the DPS rival other snipers. This thing is really bad. I'll put it in D because it can have some funny niche uses from the right range, but it's so hard to set up that it's just like it's just stupid. It's not very good. Maybe somebody in the comments has abused the Godfinger's mechanic and you can do some cheesy stuff with it, but if you're not cheesing, this weapon is just kind of meh. Okay, let's see what we have here. I believe, let's see, is this the Hawkeye? I think so. Yeah, yeah, I believe it is. Okay, so this weapon's all right. Um, it's not the most exciting. It has very high crit damage at the cost of its base damage. It has good zoom, fire rate, reload speed, and mag size, but at the cost of accuracy. It's definitely not the most exciting. The crit damage is respectable on 0, but it's actually pretty quickly outclassed by other snipers, especially on 0, because as you get further with critical ascension, the more critical ascension you have, the better it is to have higher base damage snipers than it is to have higher crit damage snipers. So on 0 in particular, this weapon's actually really bad because its base damage is so low. Um, and of course, when you're talking about a sniper list, you have to consider 0 pretty heavily, and Maya. I think those are the two best sniper users, if I had to say, because Maya's phase lock and generally the skills that she has synergize well with snipers. And 0 doesn't synergize well with this weapon. Maya can make use of it, but overall the damage is not. It's just not that good, even on either one of them. It's outclassed by so many snipers. I'll put it above the Godfinger because it's at least more practical. but it's not very good. I'll give it in C because it's like usable. Like it's not like a total disappointment, but it's not very good. That may go down to D. I think it's very close. But we'll put it bottom of C for now. Next up we have the Hot Mama, which is an effervescent sniper added in recently. This is a pretty cool one actually. So it has perfect accuracy when it's zoomed in. Respectable DPS, the fire rate and accuracy, reload speed, and mag size are good. Um, Really where this weapon shines though is ironically on Gage because besides like the Pimpernell and maybe one or two other snipers, this is one of the only ones she can actually use. And that's because it has perfect accuracy when zoomed in. So you could theoretically have 500, 600 anarchy and this weapon is still perfectly accurate. And you're going to deal a shit ton of damage if you use this on Gage. And you can actually aim with it unlike other snipers. So that alone puts it pretty high for me. It's fun on Gage, and pretty good, and it's not bad on other characters either. It's pretty respectable damage. I believe it always comes in fire, but that doesn't really stop it from being an effective weapon. I like this one. I think it's pretty good. I think I'll put it A tier. That perfect accuracy with Gage. Gage can really push this to another level. I don't know if I take it over the Amigo Sincero from a generalist point of view. We'll put them right next to each other. Honestly, I'm not sure which one I'd prefer. I think they're both good. If I'm playing Gage, I'd obviously prefer the um, Hot Mama, but I think that the Amigo Sincero is maybe a little bit better in more scenarios. Okay, next we have the Invader, which fires in a burst of 5 and is very accurate, but at the cost of extremely reduced damage. This gun is fucking terrible. I hate this thing. It's really, really, really bad, even on 0. When, in the weapon card, or if you read this weapon on like the wiki or whatever, like it does say like the greatly reduced damage. They aren't kidding. This thing does no damage. I think this is honestly top of F tier. This thing's really bad. It's better. I'd probably take it over the elephant guns and stuff, but it's not good. Okay. Next, we have the longbow. This is actually a pretty cool weapon because it functions like a longbow. It kind of has a drop. It doesn't have a scope, but unlike the elephant gun and the buffalo, it actually has pretty good fire rate. So you can actually use it close range without being a huge detriment to your team, or if you're playing solo, a huge detriment to yourself, I guess. Um, this thing's actually pretty good. DPS is pretty respectable. It's fire only, but I don't think that matters too much. I think it's a pretty respectable sniper. And if you can sort of master this thing, it can really pump out some damage. But I think I'll put it top of B. I think it's really fun to use and it has really high DPS potential, but it's very difficult to master, so that knocks it down a bit. Okay, excuse me. Next up we have the Layuda, which is going to be our first S tier, no question. Just unlisted pellets, it shoots, one pellet, and then as it travels further, two more pellets spread out, like basically horizontally. Um, it's very, very, very good. Insane fire rate. The mag size is ridiculous. It's pretty accurate. This thing's DPS potential, like pure DPS potential for a sniper, is pretty much unmatched. Um, the Pimpernell is about the only thing that really like rivals this. I think the Pimpernell is more practical, but the Layuda from a pure DPS standpoint is just insane. Okay, next we have the Morning Star, which is a pretty good one as well. So this has a hidden stacking crit multiplier, so you basically get a free little critical ascension, which is really cool, and is really nice with 0, obviously, because he's just going to get a shit ton of crit damage with this thing. But it's also good on other characters if you're accurate. So I think you could make really good use of this on Maya, easily get those crits with phase lock. Axton could make pretty good use of it because his turrets keep people still. You get the idea. It's a pretty good weapon. You do need to hit headshots though. It also, I haven't done this myself, but evidently you can transfer the hidden stacking crit multiplier over to other weapons through basically by abusing game mechanics. And by doing that, you can basically insta-kill certain raid bosses and shit like that. I haven't tried it, but I believe it. There are some weird game mechanics in Borderlands, so. But without that, it's still accurate, solid fire rate, solid DPS. The stacking crits help you just get stronger. Um, Pretty good. I think it's pretty good. And I think its potential for raid bossing abuse makes it pretty interesting. So we'll put it in A tier. Um, I think if we're talking on zero, this weapon's probably a bit better than the Hot Mama. I think I'll put it above the Hot Mama. This thing's really good on zero, and it's actually pretty good, generally speaking. Whereas the Hot Mama, I'm mostly giving it a high grade due to gauge. And of course, it's generally pretty good too, but I think the Morningstar is generally quite great on every character. Okay, next up we have the Makamak, which is just a generic purple Jacob sniper. And I included this because I think it's a non-unique, but it's worth mentioning. It's very strong. Um, the Makamak is definitely going to have to be A tier. I don't think it's S. I would put it like basically right next to the Amigo Sincero because obviously it doesn't have the benefit of bypassing shields, but it has very nice base damage, good scope, unlike the other shitty Jacobs rifles we've seen here previously. You have a scope. The fire rate isn't nearly as low as those others either, and the mag size is respectable, and the damage is respectable. If you're accurate, this gun can do some serious damage, even on like OP10. And especially with Zero, this thing's very, very good, because he can easily hit headshots, and the Makamak is great with critical ascension with its insane base damage. So this weapon's really, really solid. I like it a lot. Okay, next up we have the Patriot, which is going to be kind of another niche one, a tough one to grade, because it fires slower moving projectiles that really can only be fixed by Zero or Maya. It's not unusable on other characters, but it is going to suffer immensely without like velocity or accelerate. Like it really helps this weapon to have that. It has very high damage though, reduced mag size, and an increased reload time. So basically, really high DPS in a quick burst. Uh, it basically the two biggest problems though is those slow moving projectiles and a pretty large bullet spread, even when scoped in. So Zero can obviously fix a lot of this gun's issues and turn it into quite a killing machine, actually, because he has reload speed buffs, he can fix the spread, he can fix the projectiles, pretty much all the problems this gun has, and he can turn it into a straight up killing machine. I mean, it is a Vladov sniper, and as we know, the Layuda is quite disgusting. This isn't quite like the Layuda, but it's still really strong with Zero. Maya can do okay with it. She can fix some of the problems, but not all of it. So it's pretty good on her as well. But overall, I think this weapon really struggles if it's not on those two characters. And even then, it takes a lot to really maximize their potential, so it's difficult to give it a really high grade. I think I will put it. I think I'll put it at the top of B because most of the ones in A are good on every character. Like they're very solid. Whereas this is really good on like one character, pretty good on another, and then pretty bad on the rest. So if you're playing Zero, this whole list changes, obviously, but I'm trying to keep it as unbiased and generalist as possible. For Zero, this list would change immensely, but yeah. Next up, we have the Pimpernell, easy S tier, probably ahead of the Layuda, because not only does this gun shit out damage, it has splash damage, it has unlisted projectiles that get amp damage, it's highly accurate, great fire rate, great DPS, good reload speed, high elemental damage. I mean, you have to learn the spread of this weapon because it shoots one bullet that then splits off into another that shoots up that then splits off into like a flower pattern. So if you can find the sweet spot for this weapon, which is typically the crotch area, you can basically one-shot anything. So I think we'll give the Pimpernel the edge over the Layuda simply because it can shit out damage while also being more ammo efficient. Both of these are extremely versatile, extremely strong sniper rifles that can be used for raiding, mobbing, doesn't matter. Um, Layuda and Pimpernell both have some advantages over one another, and they're really, to me, interchangeable, but the Pimpernell is just so good at everything. I would argue that the Pimpernell is just the strongest gun in the game. So it's got to be the top of the S tier for me. Okay, next we have the Pitchfork. Um, this shoots like a super spread out horizontal pattern, and it is super ammo hungry. It fires really fast, it has fast reload speed, pretty high base damage, it can be elemental, but its biggest drawback is that ridiculous ammo consumption on the vanilla game. UCP helps fix that, but vanilla, this thing is an ammo hog. I would say it's pretty good on any character though. Um, Obviously quite nice on Zero and Maya because they can bring out its full potential. But I think this thing's honestly pretty good on any character. It can do really high damage, but it's very ammo hungry. So for that reason, it can't be too much higher than B or A because the ammo efficiency is a serious problem. Um, I think we'll put it bottom of A because it is generally good on every character. It just has severe ammo issues. So you have to kind of manage it. If you're using 4 snipers like a Zero, the Pitchfork is a lot worse because of how inefficient it is. But if you're only using, you're playing Axton, you have a sniper, a pistol, an SMG, and a rocket launcher, it doesn't matter if you burn through your sniper ammo. Okay, next we have the Skullmasher. This is going to go right next to the Makamak, but we'll get into it. It has shotgun-like pellets. It has a pretty low base damage, but it's like times 5, times 6. I think it's times 6 actually. And it is kind of like a shotgun spread, but it's a very tight spread even from far away. Has very high DPS potential, solid fire rate. Accuracy is not bad, but the accuracy is somewhat mitigated by the insane recoil that this gun has. It'll sort of make you inaccurate because of the kick. DPS potential is still really high and still very good on any character. I think the Makamak is a little bit more of a stable and consistent option than the Skullmasher, but the Skullmasher, its DPS potential I think is a lot higher if you can like aim very well and consistently hit those pellets. So I guess we'll give Skullmasher the edge because it's still good on every character and has a higher ceiling than the Makamak, but I think these three are honestly a bit interchangeable to me. Next, what do we have? The Sloth. This sniper's actually really good, but really only on Maya and Zero yet again. Um, this is similar to the Patriot because it has very high DPS potential, good reload speed, good accuracy, elemental damage, but it has slow moving projectiles, just like the Patriot. Um, I will say though, I think this is more ammo efficient, reloads faster. The fire rate's not going to rival the Patriot, but you get the idea. I actually don't think they're like crazy far off in fire rate if I recall, and I think it does really good damage too. Um, we'll put them honestly just right next to each other because they have the same limitation, bullet speed, that needs to be sped up by Maya or Zero. They're significantly less effective without those two characters. I'll give the edge to the Patriot because I think it has a higher DPS potential overall. So, moving on. We have the Snider, which benefits from gun splash damage, Reaper, and Be Like Water. This is just another generic purple Malawan sniper, but excuse me. I included it because it does a lot of damage. It has good damage over time, good base damage, good fire rate, good mag size, good accuracy. It can be elemental, obviously, and it has a high elemental chance and damage because it's Malawan. Um, I mean, the reason the Pimpernell is so good is because it's Malawan. Malawan snipers in general are pretty strong. They just do everything pretty well. Obviously, the Pimpernell has special pellet traits and stuff, but the Snider's really, really good, and it's really good on any character as well. Um, I don't think it's quite S tier, but I will put it at the top of A tier because I think it has the same generalist capabilities as these Jacob snipers, like they're good on every hero, good damage, but it also has elemental capacities which give it the edge and gun splash benefits. So like it's especially good on Maya and Zero. Okay, next up we have the Storm. Getting towards the end here. So the Storm does some grenade splash damage, which is nice for Axton or Krieg, but it's not really enough to make a big difference. You won't like this gun isn't great on either one of them just because it's not enough. Um, this gun is typically like recognized for what it can do with gauge, but you need so much anarchy for the Storm to be effective and those shock balls to start doing good damage. Like you need a high anarchy shock build for the Storm to even do anything on gauge because the damage is just so low on this thing. It takes too much anarchy to reach its potential. Eh, I would probably use it over the Godfinger because it can be fun on gauge and it's at least a little bit more practical, but you do need that pre-stacked anarchy. If you have the pre-stacked anarchy, you can move this up a tier or two, but generally speaking, it's outclassed. It's not a great option. On the UCP though, this thing is a beast. The Storm is really good on the UCP. It got some huge buffs. It's actually one of my favorite weapons, but anyway. Trespasser. This is literally the Amigo Sincero, which we talked about earlier, but 10 times worse. It has the rating capabilities, so I'll put it at the bottom of D because at least it has a purpose. But with the introduction of the Amigo Sincero, it no longer has a purpose because the Amigo Sincero just does what it does 10 times better. But at least it has a niche use if you don't have the Amigo Sincero for whatever reason. You can use it for raids, so we'll give it something. Otherwise, it's terrible. Volcano, our last gun. So the Volcano, which does some really high grenade damage, which actually makes it a very solid choice on Axton or Krieg, and especially Axton, because he has more grenade damage buffs. This is basically a Sniper that only comes in fire and has a lower base damage, which is not exactly a good thing. It, it has lower base damage but higher splash damage, which makes it a good choice on Axton, but not so much on any other character. Um, it's it's okay, like it's usable, uh, but it is definitely outclassed by the Sniper. Axton's really the only one that can like make this an interesting choice, and even then, like he has better options too. But it is okay at least. I'll put it, I think, at the bottom of the B tier. I'd use it over the Cobra pretty easily, but I would probably use all of these other ones over the Volcano. Um, like I said, on Accent it gets a slight boost, but and it's pretty meh on every other character. Even on Zero, it's not all that great. It's just meh. So yeah, I think that's where we'll leave it. Let me know down in the comments if you agree, disagree, where you would rank them. I always enjoy hearing from you guys and what you think a weapon should be ranked because more often than not I forget little details about a weapon or I don't know about certain things that a weapon can do and it affects my rankings. So if you have some weird niche or cool use for these weapons that I didn't notice, then let me know in the comments and yeah, we can talk about it. But anyways, hope you enjoyed guys and see you next time.